Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive into a world of lavish parties, hidden desires, and the allure of the American dream?
Sounds intriguing.
We're diving into F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby,
Oh, a classic.
using excerpts from the book itself. Picture this, 1920s America.
The Jazz Age.
Exactly. The jazz age is in full swing, and whispers of a mysterious millionaire
Jay Gatsby.
fill the air.
You can practically feel the excitement and the mystery.
Buckle up, because we're about to explore themes of love and loss, the illusion of wealth.
And the yearning for a past we can never quite recapture.
And that's what makes The Great Gatsby so timeless, right?
Absolutely. It's fascinating how Fitzgerald captures the glamour of the roaring 20s.
While also hinting at the moral emptiness beneath the surface.
Right. And that's what makes it so relevant even today.
Makes us question what it really means to achieve the American dream.
The dream versus the reality.
Exactly. Okay, so let's unpack this.
Let's dive in.
The story unfolds through the eyes of Nick Carraway.
Our narrator.
Right. He's a young man from the Midwest who finds himself drawn into this extravagant world of West Egg, Long Island, right next door to the enigmatic Jay Gatsby.
Gatsby's mansion is legendary.
It is. And you know how Nick describes himself?
How's that?
He says he's someone who reserves judgment, which, if you think about it, makes him the perfect sounding board for all these larger-than-life characters.
Oh, I see. Makes sense. He becomes almost like a confessor.
He does. Nick's observant nature and his ability to just listen without judgment, it makes him a magnet for secrets and confessions.
He becomes the keeper of all these hidden stories.
The whispered scandals that simmer beneath the surface of West Egg society.
It's like he's holding a mirror up to that society.
So, we experience this story through Nick's eyes, which gives us this unique perspective on Gatsby and his world. But let's talk about the man of the hour himself, Jay Gatsby.
The mysterious Mr. Gatsby.
He throws these extravagant parties, his mansion practically glowing with lights.
Attracting hordes of strangers every weekend.
Yet there's this constant air of mystery surrounding him.
Where does his wealth come from?
What's his past?
These are the questions that keep swirling around him.
Fitzgerald drops these intriguing hints about Gatsby's past.
Fueling all sorts of rumors among his guests.
Some whisper he was a German spy. Others claim he killed a man. But what's clear is that Gatsby has meticulously crafted this persona, this image of an Oxford man dripping with wealth and sophistication.
It's all part of the facade, the image he wants to project.
Right. And there's this one scene with an owl-eyed man in Gatsby's library.
Oh, I remember that scene.
He's absolutely astonished to find that the books are real, not just empty covers for show.
It's a small detail, but it speaks volumes.
Right, it's like this little detail suddenly reveals the depth of Gatsby's carefully constructed image.
Right.
He's not just throwing money around, he's created this entire world, this illusion of intellectualism and refinement.
He's trying to fit in.
He is. He's trying to fit into this world of old money, represented by people like Tom Buchanan.
Ah, old money. The established elite.
Exactly. And Gatsby, with his newly acquired fortune, he's seen as an outsider, someone who's trying too hard to buy his way into their circle.
It's a classic clash. Old money versus new money.
And that tension between old money and new money is so palpable, especially in that awkward encounter between Gatsby and Tom Buchanan.
Yeah.
At one of those luncheons.
Oh, yeah, that was tense.
Tom, with his air of superiority and disdain, he immediately sees Gatsby as a threat, someone trying to infiltrate his world.
Tom represents that established social order that Gatsby desperately wants to be a part of.
Right. There's this telling scene where Tom boasts about being Nordic and having produced all the things that go to make civilization.
As if he's drawing a line in the sand.
He is, excluding Gatsby from this narrative of inherited privilege and power.
Gatsby can never truly belong.
It's like Gatsby is striving for something that's just out of reach, a place at the table that he can never truly occupy.
Because he doesn't have the right pedigree, the right family history.
Now, let's bring Daisy Buchanan into the picture. She's Tom's wife, Gatsby's neighbor across the bay, and the object of Gatsby's deep-seated obsession.
The woman who holds the key to his dreams.
We learn through Jordan Baker, Daisy's friend, that she and Gatsby had a passionate romance years ago, before the war.
Their love story seems like something out of a fairy tale. This whirlwind romance cut short by Gatsby going off to war.
But while Gatsby was away, Daisy, surrounded by her world of wealth and privilege, she ended up marrying Tom Buchanan.
And this is where the story takes a fascinating turn. Gatsby buys this mansion across the bay from Daisy, throws these lavish parties, all with the hope of attracting her attention.
Of rekindling that lost love.
You almost wonder, can we ever truly recapture the past?
Or is Gatsby chasing a mere illusion?
It's a question that haunts the entire story.
It's like he's frozen in time, clinging to this idealized image of Daisy from their youth. But Daisy has moved on. Her life is now intertwined with Tom and their daughter. She's no longer the carefree girl Gatsby remembers.
And that sets the stage for this complex love triangle.
Filled with longing, regret, and ultimately tragedy.
This is just the beginning of their story.
Oh, there's so much more to uncover. Stay tuned, because in the next part, we'll delve deeper into this love triangle, explore the tragedy of Myrtle Wilson, and uncover the truth about Gatsby's past.
We'll unravel the layers of Gatsby's carefully crafted persona and see how his pursuit of Daisy intertwines with the allure and the disillusionment of the American dream.
You won't want to miss it. Welcome back.
Ready for more Gatsby?
Oh, yeah. Last time we left off with Gatsby, this enigmatic millionaire.
Throwing those extravagant parties.
All in hopes of winning back his lost love, Daisy Buchanan.
A grand gesture.
It is, like he's built his entire life around this one idea that if he could just recreate the past.
You can recapture their love.
Yeah, exactly. What strikes me is how Gatsby's story reflects the complexities of the American dream.
How so?
Well, on the surface, he seems to have it all. Wealth, success, this lavish mansion. But underneath, there's this profound sense of loneliness, this yearning for something more. And that loneliness, it's so evident in Gatsby's death. Despite all those crowds at his parties, he dies with only Nick there to bear witness.
Do those parties?
They were all just part of the show.
The facade he created to impress Daisy.
Right. The crowds were drawn to the glitter, not the substance. They didn't really know Gatsby, the man behind the mask.
It makes you wonder, how often do we mistake outward appearances for genuine happiness?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
And it ties back to the illusion of the American dream. Gatsby believed that by accumulating wealth, recreating himself in this glamorous image, he could win Daisy's love and somehow erase the past. But the truth is, Daisy is a product of that very world.
That Gatsby's trying so hard to emulate.
She is accustomed to wealth, to privilege, to a certain level of emotional detachment.
Remember that scene at the Buchanan's house, where Daisy and Jordan are lounging on the couch, draped in white, practically melting in the heat?
Yeah.
There's this air of languid boredom.
A sense that they're detached from the real world, insulated by their wealth and social status.
Exactly.
It's like they're living in this bubble, untouched by the struggles of ordinary people.
And Gatsby, in his naive idealism, he fails to see this.
He's built Daisy up into this unattainable ideal, projecting onto her all his hopes and dreams. And that's where the tragedy lies.
His vision of Daisy is frozen in time.
This pristine image from their youth.
But people change. Life experiences shape us.
And Daisy's no longer the girl Gatsby remembers.
He's clinging to a ghost, a memory that can never be fully resurrected.
Makes you think about those moments in our own lives when we've clung to an idealized version of someone or something from the past. Is it even possible to let go of those illusions?
And see people for who they are in the present.
It's a tough question.
Yeah.
But back to Gatsby. His capacity for self-invention is remarkable.
Oh, absolutely.
Remember how he ran away from his poor, unambitious parents?
Rejecting the reality of his origins.
Essentially created Jay Gatsby, this idealized version of himself destined for greatness.
Self-made man.
And that drive, that ambition, it led him to Dan Cody.
The self-made millionaire.
Right, who showed him the ropes of wealth and introduced him to a world of possibilities.
But even in his relationship with Cody, there's this sense that Gatsby remains an outsider. A student observing the master, but never quite gaining full acceptance.
Like he's always on the outside looking in, striving, reaching for something that's just beyond his grasp. And that pattern repeats itself throughout Gatsby's life, culminating in his encounter with Tom Buchanan.
Tom represents the old money, the inherited privilege that Gatsby can only mimic.
Never genuinely possess.
And Tom senses this. He's threatened by Gatsby's ambition, by the fact that Gatsby has, in a way, achieved the American dream through sheer willpower and determination, while Tom has simply inherited his wealth and status.
There's this simmering tension between them, a clash of values and aspirations. Tom embodies the status quo, the established order that Gatsby is trying to break into. But Gatsby's world,
it's built on shaky ground.
and those cracks become more apparent as the story unfolds.
And Those cracks are fully exposed when Tom reveals Gatsby's involvement in
Bootlegging.
and other illegal activities.
It's a devastating blow to Gatsby's image, shattering the illusion he so carefully crafted. And it raises a crucial question. At what cost do we pursue our dreams?
Are we willing to compromise our integrity, our morals, for the sake of achieving our goals?
This is where the symbolism of the Valley of Ashes becomes even more powerful.
It's not just a physical wasteland.
Right. It represents the moral decay.
That can result from the relentless pursuit of material wealth.
And those eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg on that giant billboard overlooking the valley, they seem to be judging these characters.
Reminding us that there's a higher moral authority.
A sense of accountability that wealth and privilege can't shield you from.
It's as if Fitzgerald is suggesting that the American dream, as it's often pursued, can blind us to the consequences of our actions.
Gatsby, in his single-minded pursuit of Daisy, loses sight of what truly matters.
And that leads to his tragic demise.
Shot by George Wilson, who mistakenly believes Gatsby killed Myrtle. Gatsby dies, clinging to the hope that Daisy will choose him, that she'll see past the material trappings and recognize the depth of his love.
But that's the heartbreaking reality. Daisy is incapable of making that leap of faith. She's too entangled in her world of comfort and security, too accustomed to having choices made for her. Gatsby's unwavering devotion, his grand gesture, ultimately means nothing in the face of her indecision.
It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the dreams we chase are illusions, and the past is a place we can never fully return to. Gatsby's relentless pursuit of Daisy, his attempt to recreate their lost love, ultimately leads to his destruction.
And now we're left to grapple with the aftermath. What does Gatsby's death signify? What are we to make of Daisy's choices? And how does this story make us rethink our own understanding of the American dream? We'll explore those questions and more in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we've been exploring the glitz and the grime of the Great Gatsby, and now we're at the point where Gatsby's carefully constructed world,
There's to crumble.
yeah, it all comes crashing down when Tom exposes Gatsby's involvement in shady business dealings. Remember those drugstores Tom mentions?
Yeah,
Turns out they're not quite what they seem.
right. It's during that tense confrontation at the Plaza Hotel that Tom drops this bombshell,
Yeah.
revealing that Gatsby's fortune is built on illegal activities.
Bootlegging.
Specifically bootlegging. Those drugstores are actually fronts for selling illegal alcohol.
And that's where it hits you.
Yep.
Gatsby's pursuit of Daisy wasn't just about love.
No.
It was about proving himself worthy of her world,
Right.
of achieving the same level of wealth and social standing as Tom Buchanan.
Yeah.
But to do that, he had to make compromises, to engage in activities that were, shall we say, morally ambiguous.
It really makes you think about the price of ambition, doesn't it? Gatsby was so determined to win Daisy back, to recreate their past, that he was willing to cross those lines, and in doing so, he exposed a darker side of the American dream.
The idea that success can justify almost any means. And that's where the symbolism of the Valley of Ashes becomes even more potent. It's not just a physical wasteland. It represents the moral decay, the emptiness that can result from this relentless pursuit of material wealth at all costs.
And those eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg looming over the valley on that giant billboard.
They seem to be a silent witness to this moral corruption, a reminder that there's a higher judgment beyond the reach of wealth and privilege,
Like those eyes are peering into the souls of these characters.
holding them accountable for their actions, their choices.
And in Gatsby's case, those choices lead to his tragic death.
Shot by George Wilson, who mistakenly believes Gatsby killed Myrtle.
Gatsby dies clinging to the hope that Daisy will come back to him, that she'll somehow understand the depth of his love and sacrifice.
But Daisy, she's incapable of making that leap, of breaking free from the safety and security of her world.
It's a heartbreaking realization. Gatsby's unwavering devotion, his grand gesture, ultimately means nothing to her. And that leaves us grappling with some pretty heavy questions. Is Daisy a villain in this story? Or is she simply a product of her environment, shaped by the expectations and constraints of her social class?
I think it's more nuanced than simply labeling her a villain. Daisy is a tragic figure in her own right. She's trapped in a loveless marriage, surrounded by wealth and privilege, but deeply unhappy.
You can see that in her.
Remember that scene when she throws Gatsby's shirts on the floor, sobbing at their beauty? It's a raw moment, a glimpse of the yearning and dissatisfaction she feels beneath her polished exterior. She's a woman who has always had choices made for her, first by her family, than by Tom.
She's never had to fight for anything, and she lacks the courage to break free from the gilded cage she inhabits.
So Gatsby's dream of winning her back was doomed from the start. She simply doesn't have the capacity to understand the depth of his love, the sacrifices he's made for her.
And ultimately, she retreats back into the safety of her world, leaving Gatsby to face the consequences of his actions alone.
It's a sobering reminder that sometimes the dreams we chase are illusions.
And the past
Is a place we can never truly return to.
The Great Gatsby leaves us with a lot to ponder. It's a story that challenges our notions of love, success, and the American dream itself.
It forces us to confront the compromises we're willing to make, the illusions we cling to, and the consequences of chasing a dream that might ultimately be unattainable. It's a story that stays with you long after you finish reading it,
It makes you think.
about the choices we make, the paths we choose, the price we're willing to pay for our dreams. And it leaves us with this lingering question. What does Gatsby's story tell us about our own pursuit of happiness? Are we chasing green lights across the bay, clinging to illusions that might lead to our own destruction? Or can we find a way to live in the present, to embrace the complexities of life without losing sight of our values and the true meaning of fulfillment? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into The Great Gatsby.
It's been a pleasure.